Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. The Indo-Bangladesh border issue has been festering for years. In fact, ever since the country was carved out of Pakistan in 1971. The two countries share a 4,096-kilometer border along Assam, West Bengal, Tripura, Meghalaya and Mizoram. In 2011, India and Bangladesh signed an agreement to exchange enclaves on both sides and thereby demarcate the border. However, the bill to implement this agreement continues to be pending in the parliament. If the bill is passed, it could also lead to fencing of the border. It is felt that unless this demarcation takes place, the problem of illegal migrants cannot be resolved. However, BJP was one of the parties, apart from AGP and Trinamool Congress, which have been opposing this agreement. The proposal to swap land in Assam has always faced strong resistance, especially by the BJP. Assam shares 263 kilometers of border with Bangladesh. However, on Sunday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced that his government would go ahead with a land swap deal. Will this lead to end of illegal migration as the Prime Minister has assured? Will it also give over 55,000 people living in these enclaves as virtually stateless citizens the much needed recognition? We will discuss all this today with Veena Sikri, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Prakash Singh, former Director BSF, Professor Baladas Ghoshal, Senior Fellow, Center for Policy Research, and on the phone line from Kolkata is Subhir, Bhuamick, Senior Editor, bdnews.com. Welcome to all of you. Veena Sikri, you think that this is a welcome announcement by the Prime Minister because there are still some doubts being expressed in Assam and of some political parties not being very comfortable with this?
I think this is a major announcement because it signals that Prime Minister Modi is actually walking the talk and living up to his commitment, neighborhood first. And he had met Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in SARC last week and earlier at the UNGA, and he's assured her that the land boundary agreement would be ratified. Actually, this agreement, it goes back even to 1947 because the Ratcliffe Award had drawn these lines on the map, which, regardless of contours like rivers or hills or densely populated areas. And the Nehru-Noon Accord of the 50s, which sought to solve this problem, didn't work because a case went into Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said there had to be a constitutional amendment with two-thirds majority because sovereignty of land was being changed.
Right.
In
fact, the pending bill is also a constitutional amendment.
Yes, it is. It is. In the 1974 Indira Mujib Accord, they went a long way towards agreement on the issue. But then they had left over some portions. In any case, even the Indira Mujib Accord, although the Bangladesh Parliament ratified it, but it cannot come into effect unless you have a map showing the changes, and that could never be done. Out of our 4,000-kilometer land boundary with Bangladesh, only 6 kilometers were left as unagreed, in 3 different pieces, one piece in West Bengal, one piece in Assam, another piece in Tripura. And then the question of enclaves, there were 111 Indian enclaves in Bangladesh and 51 Bangladesh enclaves in India. But because the area of the Indian enclaves in Bangladesh was 17,000 acres, and the area of the Bangladesh enclaves in India was only 10,000 acres, it seemed as if India is losing 7,000. But actually, it's a notional loss.
But it is this feeling which has been gripping the people in Assam, especially, and the political parties have been utilizing this.
Yes, but yesterday you saw, because it's a notional loss. That land was never with you, and you never had sovereignty over it. And even in Assam yesterday, the Chief Minister of Assam himself said that, yes, they have a question of adverse possessions there.
Right.
And about 700 acres was in doubt over there. But he said that we've agreed that 268 acres will go to Bangladesh and the rest will come to India. So with this settlement, a notional area where you thought you had control but you had no control is now being agreed. And certainly when you agree, you can complete the land boundary, you can have proper control, the BSF on the Indian side, the BGB on the Bangladesh side. You can draw your fences can be put up, the boundary pillars can be put up, and certainly control of illegal trade, illegal trafficking of women and children, illegal migration from Bangladesh, cattle smuggling from India. All these activities can be properly watched over and controlled. So it's a very major step, and also it will build trust with the people of Bangladesh. This is the most important because they had felt that India was not giving enough importance to this issue and repeatedly postponing it. So it became a major bone of a lack of trust between
absolutely.
India and Bangladesh.
Even in Bangladesh, it had become a political issue there itself. Mr. Prakash Singh, how do you look at this? Is this something which, as Veena Sikri was pointing out, it's been festering for so long. Now, is it something which can be done quite easily once the decision is taken, once the bill is passed in Parliament? What are the problems on the ground?
Well, I think it's a forward move by the Prime Minister. There's no problem on the ground. It was essentially the impression that India was going to lose more territory than it was going to gain. And it was this factor which was, they made much out of it, and the BJP itself stalled the land boundary agreement.
Right.
I think it's a very progressive forward move by the Prime Minister to rationalize the Indo-Bangladesh boundary. And the enclaves were a historical absurdity handed down to us. And the sooner we get over this absurdity, the better. And the Indian enclaves within India are handed over to, remain with India, and the enclaves in Bangladesh are remain with Bangladesh. And the present arrangement of adverse possession, that must be put an end to. So I think to that extent, it's a very progressive measure, and it will lead to further consolidation and improvement in India-Bangladesh relations.
Okay,
but I'm really a little perplexed when...
Please continue.
This would definitely rationalize the India-Bangladesh border, but when the Prime Minister says that it will completely stop illegal migrations from across the border, I'm a little perplexed. It will definitely rationalize the border, and to that extent strengthen our international boundary arrangements, whatever security measures we take along that. But migrations from across the border is a much bigger problem, and the migrations take place not only through these enclaves or using these enclaves, but across the international border as a whole, and particularly they have been exploiting the riverine border, which is difficult to patrol, and because most of the rivers flow from Bangladesh into India. So
right.
All they do is get into a boat at night time, and by next morning they are in India. So it will have a very partial impact on illegal immigrations from Bangladesh, which is a much bigger problem. And another thing which Mr. Modi has not touched upon, even assuming that we are able to strengthen the borders and stop further migrations to a greater extent, I don't think we can achieve 100% stoppage. But what do we do with the at least 2 crore Bangladeshis who are already inside India? Nobody has made any statement.
Okay, sir, I'll come back to you.
That's a big problem. And we...
Yeah, you have raised very important issues. I'll come back to you on this. Let me get Subhir Bhuamick in on this. Subhir Bhuamick is in Kolkata now. Subhir? Now,
yes.
how do you look at the announcement of the Prime Minister? How do you the politics of all this, which has been playing out for several years now, with BJP itself being one of the major resistors of this move, Trinamool Congress, AGP. Now you think that how do you think that this will all play out in the light of what the Prime Minister has said?
No, these 3 parties were opposing this whole land boundary agreement, not because the land boundary was something objectionable, or the agreement was something objectionable, or the swap of the enclaves that is suggested by this agreement is objectionable, but because they have their own politics. The BJP was trying to, hype this infiltration factor before the elections because they thought that they can leverage it. The Trinamool Congress was upset because they had expected, after defeating the communists in West Bengal election, that they would get something like a 25,000 crore special package from the central government as some kind of a prize for defeating the communists. That did not happen. Pranab Mukherjee was then finance minister, did not oblige. So Mamata Banerjee started arm twisting. She had agreed to the land boundary agreement. Her chief secretary had actually communicated to the then foreign minister Ranjan Mathai that they don't have any objection, but suddenly she turned around and she said not only Teesta but land boundary is also something she is objecting to. Assam Gana Parishad, where in Assam this politics of, seeing a ghost of a Bangladeshi infiltrator under every bedroom, this is an old political problem, and I don't want to go into it. But the fact of the matter is that my own state, Tripura, is located right on the border. We have the best of relations with Bangladesh, but our demography has remained intact with 8% Muslim population since 1951. That's because there is no labor demand. That's because our people work hard, and therefore there is no place for people to come here and work. So wherever there is labor demand, there has been demographic change. More importantly, the good thing about Modi now changing the whole thing and saying that the land boundary agreement is in the interest of Indian security, he is absolutely right. And this security is not linked to infiltration. This security is linked to a larger factor. And that larger factor is that if the Hasina regime, which is in power, which has been extremely friendly to India, which has crushed the insurgents, the northeastern insurgents, and also attacked and tried to decapitate the Islamic radical groups. Now, if India does not keep its promise of doing the land boundary agreement and also the Teesta, then Sheikh Hasina is in serious trouble back home, because she is going to be asked, you have done everything for India, dear sister, what the hell have you got for Bangladesh?
Okay,
Zero.
that's interesting. That's interesting.
And that you have to understand, Girish,
Okay.
that is actually the security.
Okay.
That if you don't have a friendly regime in Dhaka, your entire security in the east and northeast goes for a toss.
Absolutely.
And this is a larger
Subhir,
issue that should be understood.
Subhir, I know that's very interesting points which you have raised there. Please stay on. I'll come back to you, Professor Ghoshal. So it is actually, as Subhir says, that it is more of a bilateral diplomatic thing which needs to be done. Mr. Prakash Singh has his own doubts about how much illegal migration can be stopped from this.
I think this land boundary agreement needs to be implemented immediately. I think India has a major responsibility in that. India is a much larger neighbor, and a larger neighbor should behave more like an elder brother rather than a big brother. And in this case, this problem is festering for such a long period of time. And I think, as Subhir has mentioned, that we have now a very friendly government, and that government has done quite a lot for us, particularly in terms of sending back the insurgents from Assam and all that. So I think it is incumbent on our part to do something in return. And in fact, Sheikh Hasina's position is quite difficult now at this moment, and there will be a lot of opposition to her if this particular agreement or particular thing is not satisfied. So I think this politics that had really stopped this agreement to be implemented all these years, I think all the political parties, it is almost, I think, an imperative for them to come together and implement this agreement, because if India has to do anything in this region, it has to keep the neighbors along with it.
Right.
And without the support of the neighbors, India can never be not only just a regional leader, but it can never be an important player in the world. So I think it is very important that this agreement is implemented immediately, and that will, in fact, if not, as Mr. Prakash Singh has mentioned, that this will not stop infiltration altogether, because there are other sociological problems for that kind of immigration.
It's very interesting what Subhir says, that Tripura having the same boundary, but demography hasn't changed there.
And in fact, so long these people in our part are not willing to do the kind of work that Bangladeshis are willing to do at a much lower price, they will continue to come in.
So, Veena, Sikri, this is interesting. When we talk of the migration problem, it is not just that people are coming here and flocking, they are needed here, isn't it?
You see,
their labor is very much needed. That's why they are coming, and people are employing them.
I must say there are 2 points here. First of all, it has a lot to do with the concern of individual state governments.
Right.
Now, as Mr. Bhuamick rightly said, the government of Tripura has got its own system in place. In fact, if you go to Agartala, and I've been there several times, the people from Bangladesh come in every day and go back every evening. So they've made a system which prevents illegal migration. In Mizoram, which is another state which is bordering Bangladesh, there is zero illegal migration.
Absolutely.
Because they have a system of a village register. Every village has a register. All the residents of the village are mentioned in the register. The moment a new person comes, that person's name is not in the register, so you're identified as an illegal migrant. The problem with Assam and West Bengal has been that the issue of illegal migration has been completely politicized. And it is for several purposes. I think it's for even vote bank purposes. It's for having cheap labor purposes. And it's become so politicized that even the ability to tackle it by these state governments has become politicized and has been thrown into jeopardy. For example, yes, if you do need labor from Bangladesh and there are jobs to be done, well, give them work permits. A system can easily be evolved.
Has that,
like
you have been the High Commissioner in Bangladesh. Was that ever discussed? What is the response of the Indian government, the state governments to these kind of things?
Well,
why is there so much difference in the way the state governments deal with this issue, taking Tripura and Mizoram on one side and the other state governments?
Well, I think, as I said, when you have vote bank politics coming into play, then state governments tend to turn a blind eye to what's going on. And I'm telling you that the illegal migration has led to so much illegal activity along the border, and probably people voting on both sides of the border, which is an illegal activity in India and in Bangladesh. So actually, it has worsened the security situation to a situation where you've seen on 2nd October the blast in Burdwan and the subsequent unraveling of the activities of Jamaat al-Mujahideen Bangladesh. So while Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been very strong and very positive in taking action against Indian illegal insurgent groups in Bangladesh and against her own radical militant outfits, we've seen that because of the porous border, because of turning a blind eye to illegal immigration, that work is being undone because those people, the Jamaat al-Mujahideen Bangladesh, have crossed the border and are acting in India and against Bangladesh. So now instead of one state being under threat, both states are under threat. So I think there is a very important need for both governments to discuss it. In fact, it's interesting to recall that in 1992, 22 years ago, when Prime Minister Khaleda Zia was there in power, she came to India on a state visit. And in the document of that visit, illegal migration was mentioned in the joint statement as an agreed problem, but never followed up in discussion.
Okay, we are now joined in by Jayanta Ghoshal, editor of the Anand Bazaar Patrika, on the phone line. Jayanto, the question is this. Now that the Prime Minister has made this statement, how easy or how difficult will it be for him to convince his own party to agree to what he proposes to do?
No, I think, Girish, already the party, on behalf of Amit Shah, they have done the job.
Okay.
Number one, there was a problem from the Assam unit. And especially last time when Manmohan Singh was Prime Minister, I recall, that time election was also there.
Right.
So there was a ground reality was that there was agitation and it was very difficult for the state BJP to accept this sort of deal. But this time, if you follow the report also, there is a mentioning that Assam will not be disturbed by this deal. Specifically, only the impact will be there on West Bengal because this exchange of this corridors. Yeah. So, but this without this deal, without this agreement, it will be very difficult to combat the infiltration. And infiltration, actually, it is not only a political issue of BJP, it's an administrative issue. I have a very simple question, Girish, that can I go to any other country without visa? This is a very simple thing. And there should not be any religion should not be any criteria to discriminate also. That is another aspect.
That's right.
This is my opinion. So you cannot differentiate Hindu and Muslim infiltrators. That is a different thing. But infiltration, when West Bengal government is objecting Tista for West Bengal interest, but you tell me the infiltration in West Bengal, is it complementary for the development of West Bengal economics? So,
okay. Jayanto.
Hello.
No, Jayanto. Yeah. Yes, Subhir.
Hello, Girish, can I come in there?
Yes, Subhir, please come in.
Now, let us get one thing right. There has been a migration from Bangladesh to India, but since Sheikh Hasina has come to power, and this is for the information for everybody on the panel and all your audience, that since Sheikh Hasina has come to power, we have to realize that remittances from expatriate labor is the second largest sector of Bangladesh's foreign exchange income, garment industry being the first. And therefore, Sheikh Hasina and her government has made very stringent effort to legalize migration. She's not interested in an illegal migrant because an illegal migrant going out of Bangladesh is not in a position officially to send back any money.
Right.
So at the moment, she has signed agreement with a large number of countries. I can remember Malaysia, which was done last month, to officially send labor for work in those countries, to work in the Middle East, in all the different places. And I think the time has come to consider, for India to consider what L.K. Advani had once said, that we give work permits. Now that happens, as Madam Veena Sikri said, unofficially in Tripura, that people come in, they are scanned, they are very much in the radar, and they go back in the evening. Now something like that can really happen. It's time for India and Bangladesh to take this forward.
Okay.
Rather
Girish, can I say one sentence?
Yes, Jayanta, quickly.
I don't think that there will be any problem on this also, but it should be part 2. Now there is a rough weather to implement this part 1. Now we have going to achieve to implement this first part of the border agreement.
Right.
And what is this legal migration issue? That can be a part 2, and that can be evolved. It's not impossible.
Okay.
It can be evolved.
What I'm trying to say, Girish, is that Bangladesh no longer
I'll come back to both of you. I need to
illegal immigration.
Okay, Subhir, I'll come back. I have to get my other guests in. Mr. Prakash Singh, the question now is, how do you implement this? Even let us assume that what the Prime Minister has said will be implemented in the form. The bill has to be first passed in the Parliament, and then once that happens, is it a easy task to fence the borders? What will be the role of border people, the organizations like Border Security Force? You think the political situation, especially in Assam and to some extent in West Bengal, will allow easy fencing of the borders?
You see, there are 3 aspects to the problem. I think we have to understand all the 3 aspects separately.
Right.
Firstly, the land boundary agreement.
Right.
There should be no question of any disagreement on this, and Mr. Modi should just push it forward, get it ratified by the Parliament.
Right.
There are no 2 opinions on it. The second question is stoppage of infiltration. Stoppage of infiltration will partially improve with the boundary being demarcated and being rationalized. It will definitely, there will be partial improvement. I would not share the optimism that this would lead to stoppage of infiltration or illegal migrations from across the border. That's not going to happen because there are so many other forces at work. Time does not permit to go into the details of it.
Right.
The third major problem about which nobody is talking is what do we do with the 20 million Bangladeshis already in India?
Here?
You see, I have attended several, already in India. I have had several discussions at several conferences, and 2 things which emerge. Look, it is difficult to push them back.
Right.
It is difficult to push them back.
First of all, you have to identify them.
Maybe
identification itself may be a problem.
First, we have to identify. Number 1, we have to identify them. Number 2, we should give them identification slips that, all right, this would allow you to stay in India, say for the next 5 years or 10 years, whatever the government decides. But 2 things we have to ensure, and those 2 things are, A, they are not allowed to acquire immovable property, and B, they do not have right to vote. We have to ensure, because please, I'll go back to what the Supreme Court said. I'll go back to what the group of ministers said. I'll go back to what the parliamentary panel said.
Right.
I mean, at every stage, I mean, the group of ministers, the Supreme Court said it is a demographic aggression, and the Supreme Court said in 2005, yes, 2005, they have no right to stay in India and they should be sent back. 2008, there was a parliamentary panel which said that they constitute a serious threat to the economy of the country, to the security of the state. So, I mean, we have to take cognizance of the presence of these 20 million Bangladeshis and do something positive about them instead of letting them become a part of the country's landscape, become as good as Indian citizens. That would be terrible.
Okay.
I think that aspect
Ghoshal,
also needs to be addressed.
Is it the Prakash Singh's point is well taken, but we have been struggling with identifying them for years now.
I think we should identify the steps that we are going to take. I think first should come first. First is the land boundary agreement to be implemented. Let us do it first. Then the question of, sealing the border comes in. Then the third step would be how to identify these illegal immigrants and how to resolve that crisis. Whether you issue a work permit or because it is not possible to send them back in the way that people have been talking about. Maybe politically it might sound quite good, but it is not practical. So I think some of the steps need to be identified first, and first thing should come first. Because if we start with all the problems at a time, then maybe we'll not be able to resolve all the crises.
Even one of them, actually.
Even one of them. I think that is one of the problems in our policy making in India, that we don't really sort of think in terms of different steps and how to go about it.
Absolutely. Yes.
Actually, let me tell you on the problem of identification.
I'm sure these things have already been discussed, at the government level, at the bilateral level. What has been is it just the political problem which you people have faced in resolving this?
No, first of all, I think this whole issue of having the land boundary agreement protocol, that is vital because you don't have an agreed land boundary with your nearest neighbor and longest neighbor, which is Bangladesh. Maritime boundary has been agreed this year itself. So if we complete this, it will be a major step forward. Secondly, if you look at the issue of identification that you mentioned, I think, let me tell you, these are different agencies working. So it's not a question of doing things simultaneously. It is possible to do it simultaneously because different agencies are involved. And as far as identification is concerned, let me tell you, the police authorities in each state know very well who the illegal immigrants from Bangladesh are, where they are, and what they're doing. I can give you a specific example. During the Commonwealth Games recently in India, all over in Delhi and so on, it was known. And for 3 weeks, all identified illegal migrants in Bangladesh, they were told to go back, and they went back and then they came back again. So it's not that the problem is not known. It is known. The question is how you deal with it. First of all, I agree that illegal voting cards is a complete no-no. And wherever they are identified, it should be made clear that they are there for a certain amount of time, but their identification slips as Bangladeshi citizens is very important. Now, in many states, particularly in West Bengal, many of them are arrested because when they're crossing the border or they're arrested in Calcutta or any other city, they're put into jail. And then they're given a sentence, maybe a few months. Now they have to go back. Now, the previous governments, I know that when I was there with Prime Minister Khalida Zia, she would never recognize. So when you had actually got the people in jail...
So right now we have a very friendly government in Bangladesh, and this is the time to grab the issue and
Absolutely. So the present government is actually taking citizens back because they are identifying them. So there is a way of working on many fronts at the same time and solving the problem, because the security threat within India, the illegal immigrants are highly sensitive. They're highly amenable to being used for illegal activities, whether it is religious fundamentalism or just illegal activities.
Okay, very quickly, Subhir, very quickly, last words to you. You think that the politically this issue can be taken up? The BJP leadership will be able to work it out with their Assam state unit, even in West Bengal. And you think Mr. Modi's assurance of drawing a boundary will be fruitful?
You see, Modi will have to control his Assam unit and get them round to this agreement, because Assam in the past, it was a very big state, but it could not handle the aspirations of very many different tribal groups, and ended up in splinterization, and many new states were created. I'm afraid with that kind of chauvinism, if Modi falls a victim to that, then God bless, the rest of India. So I don't think, Modi should be getting entrapped by, what his Assam unit thinks. He will have to go beyond that. And number two, most important thing, apart from the land boundary agreement, it's also important to take the Teesta agreement forward.
Right.
Because if there is a serious problem with Teesta, then Mamata Banerjee should be able to place in the parliament and in the assembly the report of Kalyan Rudra Commission, which she had set up, which she had commissioned, and I'm very sure what Kalyan Rudra has said, that,
Okay.
Teestas, for the interest of
Okay,
saving
Shubhir.
Teesta,
Shubhir,
the
we are
normal
running out
flow
of-
should be maintained.
Okay,
so
Shubhir.
it's very important to do a good gesture to Bangladesh now so that the hands of Sheikh Hasina is strengthened.
Okay.
That is in India's interest.
Okay, thank you, Shubhir. Thanks for that. So, the statement of the Prime Minister is welcome. Now it is up to him to work out the political problems which he may face from within his own party. But as all my panelists say, this is the time to grab the issue and